AI is not going to take your job. Someone using AI to do your job better is going to take your job, right?
To talk and discuss what it means to be human in the age of AI. His background started with 11 years as a US Marine, including Intuit, Travelers, Apple, finally VP at eBay.
If I tell you to do something, you don't do it, I take you out back and I beat you. That doesn't work very well in the corporate world. So that was a yeah, but no one's going to kill me, right? It's like it gives you a different perspective on the things you do, right? It's like no one's shooting at me, right? It's like 20 plus years to soften that.
That should not be automated.
But let's say it's a widow who just lost her husband.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. In that situation, AI could do it. But from an empathy perspective, you probably want to give that person that confidence, that warmth. AI is your thought partner, not your thought replacement.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Spiritual Techie podcast, where I love to talk to innovators, founders, visionaries, educationists, people with some remarkable human transformation journeys, even spiritual leaders, to talk and discuss what it means to be human in the age of AI. And today I have a very senior leader who's been out there in the business world. His background started with, 11 years as a US Marine, and then he's gone on to work for some mega giant companies, including Intuit, Travelers, Apple, and finally, VP at eBay. And he's recently quit eBay to start his own consulting organization that is meant for organizational change in the age of AI, Amplify. He's also #1 best-selling author on Amazon for his book called Amplify, which is again on the similar topic of building AI in a manner that you don't lose trust, accountability, and human judgment while helping organizations navigate this humongous disruptive force called artificial intelligence and machine learning and robotics. So in this age, I thought it would be wonderful to talk to this person. His name is Dan Leiva. And I have personally known Dan for a few years while working at Apple, where he was my business counterpart. I was genuinely impressed with some of the attributes that he brought to the table: an unwavering obsession with customer experience, going above and beyond to design solutions that make our customer experience the best that is out there, and his ability to stand against all pressures and push for the change that he feels is absolutely needed. And today I'm really looking forward to an amazing podcast with Dan. So Dan, welcome to my podcast here. I think this is going to be a great one. I have always had high respect for you, and I'm just taking that forward today. So welcome to the Spiritual Techie podcast.
Thanks for having me. Respect for you also. You gave me that needed pushback and that balance. I do have that unwavering demand for what I believe should be the right customer experience, but it always has to be tempered with what's possible and what's feasible. I always enjoy working with great technology partners who can deliver right what's needed, and enjoyed spending that time with you at Apple, and have enjoyed across my career working with the right kind of people who understand what's needed and can work toward delivering that. And so, looking forward to our conversation today.
Absolutely. And a little bit about perspective that you just shared. I think we both have that in common, that we use our logical brain, our intelligence to kind of support or debate those. And at the end of the day, all of those conversations, all of those debates are for the betterment of our technology, so that it meets the end objective, which is always how are we helping our end user. And it was definitely fascinating for me to, have those debates with you. And, I've always spoken very highly of you to my leaders, saying, yeah, I mean, this is a great idea, but we should approach this way and that way. So,
Definitely.
and I think that was part of the philosophy at Apple as well. I have now started my own startup where I'm, mentoring some very, young engineers. And I tell them that you should stand up for what is right. You should ask those tough questions. And that is how you, if make great products, and then you have great products at your hand.
Yeah. Yeah, I always talk about that courage to stand up for what you believe in. It's one of the and we'll probably get into as we talk, but it's one of the 4 things I expect of leaders is have that courage to stand up for you believe in, even when it's hard and other people don't believe in it. You still have to have that courage.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that comes from your US Marine background.
Yeah, definitely.
I didn't know that you had this US Marine background. I recently got to know that
Yeah.
as I was, preparing for this podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that makes sense. That is exactly why Dan
Yeah.
was tough. And, he stood ground for whatever he believed in. So tell me a little bit about your US Marine background. I think the qualities that you would have imbibed during those days as a human, as a leader, because I think that can be a great starting point for what we're going to discuss today. So take it
Yeah,
away.
yeah, definitely. So, a long time ago, when I graduated high school, I come from a lower middle class family. So when I graduated high school, college was not an option for me back in the mid 1980s. And so I went into the military right out of high school, and I had known I was going into the Marine Corps. I mean, I went in. I was 17 years old,
Oh,
right?
wow.
And so I went in the Marine Corps right out of high school, and I always had a good work ethic. I had started working when I was 12 years old. So I had held down, different kinds of odd jobs and worked in a gas station, did a little construction stuff. But
Mhm.
going in the Marine Corps that young, and I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, so I had some of that toughness anyway as a kid. But going in the Marine Corps that young, it really gave me that toughness, that work ethic. The Marine Corps is different from the other branches of service. In the other branches of service, you have a military occupational specialty is what's called. You have a job.
Mhm.
And that's what you primarily do. The
Mhm.
Marine Corps treats it a little differently. Every Marine Corps is an infantryman. So every Marine Corps is taught how to fight as an infantryman, and then you have your job on top of that.
Right.
And so other branches of service, you go to boot camp and then you go on to your school.
Mhm.
In the Marine Corps, you go to boot camp and then you go to infantry training and then you go to your school.
Okay.
And so every Marine Corps is capable of going out there and fighting in the field.
Hmm.
And every year you go out and re-qualify with the rifle and all of that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And so it's a little bit different kind of training. Also, the way you get promoted in the Marine Corps is a little different. In other branches of service, you get promoted based on your technical capabilities and
Mhm.
things like that, and a
Right.
little bit of leadership. In the Marine Corps, it's much more about leadership. The
Mm.
leadership qualities of a Marine is much more an important part of how you continue to grow in your Marine Corps career. And so those things of that leadership qualities, the how you lead people and how you influence and how you get things done
Mhm.
are really right part of how you become a Marine and how you become successful as a Marine. And having spent, a little more than a decade doing
Right.
that, that really instilled in me those kind of qualities. Now,
Mhm.
that was a hard change when I left the Marine Corps after a decade going into the civilian world because, when you lead in the corporate world, it's very different. In the Marine Corps, if I tell you to do something you don't do it, I take you out back and I beat you. That
Right.
doesn't work very well in the corporate world. So that was a that was a tough transition. But it definitely instills in you those kind of things of leading, influencing people to get a job done.
Uh-huh.
Now, in the Marine Corps, it's, taking that hill and, you could possibly die. So, it's very different.
Mhm.
And that was one of the things led different teams and worked with different leaders.
Mhm.
People would always say, it's like, well, this is really hard. It's like, yeah, but no one's going to kill me. Right.
Mhm.
It's like it gives you a different perspective on the things you do. Right. It's like
Yes.
no one's shooting at me. Right. It's
Yes.
like Marine Corps could have killed me. It's like worst thing that can happen is, the boss is going to fire me.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it gives you a different perspective on things as well.
Yes.
Now, that transition from being in the military into the civilian world, like I said, was hard.
Yes.
Fortunately, the first role I had out of the Marine Corps way back in 1997
Mhm.
was at a blue collar kind of manufacturing company,
Mhm.
and so they had manufacturing machines on the floor. So it was very much a not your typical office environment, and I think that helped a lot because had I gone straight into someplace like Intuit, I
Mhm.
probably would not have survived because I needed that kind of little bit of roughness in the office,
Yes.
so that I still had that kind of balance.
Uh-huh.
Because even at Intuit, I had a lot of those comments to be able to grow in my career. I had comments like, you have an intimidating hallway presence, right?
Uh-huh.
Because I walk down the hallway, I don't smile. It's like I'm going meeting to meeting, I'm
I
busy.
can
It's
agree
like,
with that. I remember those Apple days, and yes, you had that, and most of the people were intimidated. I am wired differently, and I'll tell you why. So I used to find that funny, and I used to still push you and say, please carry on.
It's funny because at eBay, right, being in a VP role many years later, somebody that worked for me both at Apple and then at eBay, somebody asked him, he's like, "What's the difference between Dan at eBay versus Dan at Apple?" And his comment was, this is a direct report, Matthew, direct report. He
Uh-huh.
said, "He's just as effective, but he's much less of an a-hole." Right? That was yeah. And it was, and it's one of those things that over my career I learned is like, you don't have to be that tough person. How do you tone down those pieces?
Right.
How do you have that empathy, and how do
Mhm.
you change that
Yes.
personality? And that was hard, right? Growing up in New York, being a Marine, having that tough
Yes.
personality, how do you
Yes.
soften that, right?
Yes.
And it took a lot of years to soften that, right?
Yes.
20
Yes.
plus years to
Yes.
soften that.
Yes.
And to get to the point where you can, when something goes bad, to not get upset.
Oh, yes.
It happened,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But a lot of that was formed from
Yes.
being in the Marine Corps and transitioning into the corporate world.
Yes. I think beautifully well said. And there are a couple of things that struck with my brain, and I would like to delve a little bit deeper, because the way I organize these podcasts is many people just talk about AI or they just talk about humanities. I am somewhere in the middle. I think ultimately AI or whatever other technologies you talk about, they are ultimately the end consumer is human. So
Yes.
if you are not going to talk about the human aspects of leadership and courage and compassion and empathy, then I don't think the conversation is complete. So
Correct.
I like to spend a few minutes talking about the human in front of me and then get into the technological aspects of it.
Definitely.
So what I picked up was one important thing that you said: nobody's going to die. And I'd like to share some perspective on that, because when I started my career, Dan, even I came from lower middle class family growing up in India. And luckily we had enough that we always had food on the table. I
Yep.
went to good school. My dad was a very kind and compassionate guy. He said, whatever I have to do, I will do it just to make sure that you guys are well educated. And
Mhm.
that, I think, was the greatest gift he gave us. We didn't have a fancy house or a fancy car, a very bare minimum single, two-bedroom apartment and stuff. But he took care of us and gave us the values that I bring to the table today. So I'm always grateful and thankful for my parents. However, when you come from, a place where you are ambitious, but your circumstances weren't very rich, or
Yep.
money was in shortage, you put a lot of pressure on yourself to
Yep.
succeed. So my initial years in the tech world were driven with a force that I was like, okay, I have to succeed. And I would put 14 hours, 15 hours, and it started putting a lot of pressure on me. I started getting stressed and anxious in certain situations. And there was one day a book that I was reading. There was a statement in there that said, when you come across situations like these, ask yourself that if this thing is not done today, is anybody going to die? And I took a step back and I was like, yeah. I mean, we are not in the military. We are not fighting a war. End of the day, this is just humans that I'm dealing with. And yes, everybody wants things to be done yesterday, but certain times it is not going to be possible. And if I kill myself to meet somebody else's unrealistic demands, then it is the reflection is on me. I am not mustering the courage to stand up and say, guys, this is not realistic.
Yep.
And it is my job as I grow in my career to protect others also
Totally.
who I see getting into those spaces.
Yep.
So, what you guys saw me at Apple was a very different version of myself.
Yeah.
And I have seen situations where production support, they'll be on your neck saying, oh,
Yep.
this is broken. Or, there are situations which require immediate attention.
Totally.
You have to drop everything and go and fix it. And then there are situations where you have time. You can work around your ecosystem around it so that you give yourself the breathing space. And that's how I was operating at Apple. I think leadership starts within. I mean, it is not
Yep.
driven by the titles you own or what position you have in the organization. Everybody is a leader. So I would stand up for myself. I would stand up for other people where I would see those younger versions of Kamaljeet,
Yep.
struggling with stress but still staying yes. And I would go and mentor them and say, guys, take it easy. It's okay. Yes, the business wants this to be delivered tomorrow, but we can ask for more time, and it is right to do that because we want to build a good product. And it's been a remarkable journey. And now I understand better where you were coming from, and your US Marine background was the key factor there.
Yep.
So as you transition over to technology, Dan, you spent so many years at mega corporations like Apple and eBay and Intuit and stuff. So what did you learn about humans beyond technology? What was your perspective at the start, and how did you transition? What did you learn unique about them?
Yeah. There's lots of things I learned, and a lot of it comes down to really understanding and learning where the other person's coming from.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right. There's always my perspective, right? And a lot of disagreements happen not because, right, they're wrong or you're wrong. It's
Hmm.
because you have two different sets of information, right? And really understanding other people's perspectives. That
Yes.
helped. That's probably one of the biggest things that helped me.
Hmm.
Uh, is understanding other people's perspectives. And
Yes.
and really, I boiled it down to there are four things that I expect of every leader whenever I have your leaders. There's all the technical skills I expect you to have.
Yes.
And it was very interesting. Whenever I was interviewing people at eBay, except for my, when I was hiring a direct report, a little different. Whenever I'm interviewing anybody at eBay,
Hmm.
and even towards the end at Apple, it was never a technical interview. It
Hmm.
was always a personality interview. Because
Okay.
by the time you get to me, if you don't have technical skills, you're not going to get to me, right?
Yes.
And it was
Yes.
more personality interview, and I always expect four things, and they're very simple in my mind, and this is very much an Apple thing: intellectual curiosity,
Yes.
and especially in today's world, more than anything else, if you're not always willing to learn, you're not going to survive, right? And in the AI world, that's more true than anything else, right? The,
Exactly.
the number of things changing in
You have
today's
to learn
world.
maybe every day. Forget years. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just insane.
I did an AI panel. It was a couple of years ago. This was right after AI, Gen AI had started to come out really big. And I was actually sitting on the panel, and like an hour before, I think it was OpenAI's like model version 4 had just come out, like an hour before the panel started. It's like you had somebody from one of the big four consulting companies, somebody from Genesis, right? And we're sitting on the panel.
Uh-huh.
And we started the panel, and we were all introducing ourselves and stuff. And they got to me, and I said, "Okay, it's 3 o'clock. We're going to
Mhm.
give you all the answers. At four
Okay.
o'clock, they're probably wrong." Right? It's like that's how fast it's moving, right? And so intellectual curiosity, number 1. Number 1.
Yes.
Humility, number 2, right?
Hmm. Yes. Yes.
I may know a lot of stuff. I've done a lot of stuff, everything else. I don't know
Mhm.
everything,
Yes. Of
right?
course. Yes.
And so having the ability to admit you don't know everything, right?
Hmm.
Not always having to be the smartest person in the room. No, do I want smart people in the room? Yes. But if you have to act like you're the smartest person in the room all the time,
Yes.
I call that a dude, you're not going to work out, right?
Yes.
Interesting things about when I first, joined Apple way back in 2011, I
Hmm.
totally expected that, right? Okay, these are going to be a bunch of really smart people, right? I'm
Uh-huh.
pretty smart. Those are really smart people, but I
Right.
was I was able to hold my own, right? It was like, okay, you know.
Yes.
Now, previous to that, it was like, I was generally one of the smarter people in the room, right? At Apple, it was like I'm treading water. It's like, which was
Yes.
really cool because it's really smart people. Uh,
Yes.
but it's like, but you have to be willing to admit you're not the smartest person in the room. So intellectual
Absolutely.
humility,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
The third one, inclusion, and not like just the typical DEI stuff, but you have to be willing to have and be willing open to different points of view. And it's tied a little bit to humility, right? It's like
Yes.
get the most diverse perspectives you can get on an opinion, and you're
Yes.
going to get to the best answer. Right?
Yes.
Because once
Yes.
again, if I don't know everything and I'm willing to listen to different opinions and different
Yes.
perspectives, I'm going to get to the best answer. And
Yes.
the fourth is that courage I talked about, which
Hmm.
is right, be willing to stand up for something. So if you take those four things and you take about people, the thing I learned about people, if I approach things with those four things and
Yes.
understand, how what's important to you,
The right. Yes.
understand, right, have empathy towards,
Yes.
you and what's going on, right? You take those four things, you can be successful in any role,
Yes. 100%.
right?
100%.
I had 17 different roles in 10 years,
Oh, wow.
right? Because I was kind of the, "Hey, if it's broken, send Dan in to fix it," right, kinda
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
And so I was able to learn so much because of that intellectual curiosity. I love to learn things, right?
Yes.
Uh, but also that humility of, "Hey,
Yes.
I don't know everything, help me learn," right?
Yes.
And so for me, that's what I learned along my journey is be willing to not know everything, be willing to talk to people, be willing to ask questions,
Yes.
and be open to learning.
Yes.
And you're going to learn so much about people. The other thing,
Yes.
talk to people. Find
Yes.
out about them. It was one of the things that freaked people out when I first joined eBay, when I first took over the team. So when I joined eBay originally, I had a really small team.
Mm-hmm.
And 5 months later, I was running the entire organization. It was planned for it was supposed to be like a year-long transition. And
Okay.
5 months later, the person who was running the rest of the team went out, and
Uh-huh.
I wound up taking over the entire team. And
Uh-huh.
so I was up in the Salt Lake office. And one of the things I do, and so I'm a huge introvert,
Uh-huh.
but I'm a situational extrovert, right? And
Yes,
so
that's what when you said huge introvert, I was like, no, you don't seem like, but yeah, now you clarified situational extrovert. Yes, I could
Exactly. So,
accept
like,
that.
when we're done with this, I'll
Yes,
talk to nobody for the rest of the day, right?
right.
And I'll be perfectly happy with that.
Yes,
And so, I go to the Salt Lake office where we had about 75 people on my team, right? Out
right.
of the, 1,000 around the world, about 75 people on the team. And I'm just walking the floor talking to people.
Uh-huh.
And what I heard back, the feedback was, why was Dan talking to me? And I would go out like, hey, what are you working on? Let's talk about you. You got
Right.
kids, right? And people were freaked out. It's like, I just wanted to get to know the people,
All
right?
right.
But people would freak out about it. Cause for me, learning people outside of just what they are
Mhm.
and what they do every day gives you a better perspective.
To those people beyond, the typical, corporate culture as well. I mean, and once you get to know those humans beyond just their skill sets,
Yep.
they are going to go above and beyond for you. And
Exactly.
that's a simple human psychological thing which many people miss out on, right? So,
And the other thing about that is, as you look at, especially as you grow through your career and you wind up leading teams,
right.
you can tell if there's performance problems, you
Hmm.
can tell, is there something else going on?
Hmm.
Because if you know them, it's like,
Right.
okay, this is not a work problem. There's something else going on,
Right.
right? So you can help them, not just with the work thing, right? And you say,
Yes.
hey, you don't have to talk to me about it, but we've
Right.
got resources for you to get help with this kind of stuff,
Yes.
right? Because
Yes.
my goal as a leader is not just take care of you from a corporate perspective, but take care of you as a person, right?
Hmm. Yes.
And so, and that was one of the things. That was one
Right.
of the things that frustrated me. Is like it became a numbers game. It
Mm.
became one of the biggest reasons it was time for me to get out of the corporate world was it became a numbers game and quit
Mm.
being about the people,
Mm.
right? And for me as a leader, as we went through those layoffs and we were doing them more often than I liked, one
Mhm.
of the things I always told my team is as you go through those layoffs,
Mhm.
if that's not the hardest thing you do in your career, you shouldn't be leading people.
Mhm. Yes.
Because
Yes.
when you have to put that name on
Mhm.
that list,
Yes.
right? That's a very when you have to have that conversation. When we had to do those kind of things, because there were times where I would have to do it and I would be impacting somebody
Mhm.
and some of their team would be impacted. It's like I would wind up, let's say we're in my team, like I said, I had a large team around the world and say there's 50 people on the list.
Mhm.
Right? There would
Right.
be times where I'd wind up having 20 of those conversations because
Mhm.
I'm not gonna delegate that to, like, a senior manager.
Mhm.
Like, no. I made the decision, I'll put them on the list. I'm
Yeah.
gonna have a conversation with the person.
Yes.
It's like, that's not fair to put that on somebody else that had
Yes.
no say in the reason behind that. I
Yes.
put the person on the list, I'm gonna have the conversation,
Yes.
right? And so for me, the thing I learned, like I said, along the way about is like, if you treat it like work,
Right.
you don't get the success that you could have with the people because the people know you don't care about them as people.
Yes. 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 I wish I had the opportunity to spend more time with you on a one-on-one basis when you were part of Apple, because what I'm discovering about you now, Dan, is giving me an insight that we are very similar people. I'll quickly draw your attention to something that you said. You said you are a situational extrovert, but most of the times you are an introvert. After a busy day, you're gone and you're silent and you're with yourself. That is so much me. I mean, I love to talk. I love to interact with people. I'm a very human person. But then once that thing is over, I withdraw like a typical sage would, and I can spend hours and even days just being with myself. And no wonder I've been meditating for a long, long time,
Yes.
because I think that was a part of my personality that was unfolding. And usually my greatest insights come from those moments of silence when
Mhm.
I am spending time with nobody but just me. And I'm happy. I have a couple of properties at Shasta Lake in Northern California. And many times I love going there, and it's on, the lake is right below me. And my friends ask me, they're like, "You go alone, and what do you do there?" I'm like, "Nothing." They're
Yeah.
like, "How can you spend 2 days, 3 days there doing nothing?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do nothing. I literally sit on my deck and I just keep watching those boats pass by and the birds flying. I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, that's who I am. And
That's
I've seen that most of the people who are innovative, who are creative, have that tendency. It is your silent moments which, I think speak to you. And but since I've been into meditation, I even understand why it is that way. Because the way we are structured, Dan, is that we have our intellectual abilities, and then we have a soul, we have a heart,
Mhm. Yep.
and the whispers of the heart are our gut feelings, our intuition. Steve Jobs used to talk about it all the time. And I've reflected so many times on this aspect that he was spot on. When your mind shuts down and there are blank moments where there are no thoughts, that's the time when you get your best ideas. That's the time when your intuition speaks to you and gives you an insight, and you're like, haha, that makes sense. So I don't think innovation comes from, just the intellect. It comes from something deeper, and you have to
Yeah.
give yourself time to slow down
Yep.
and let that thing speak to you and build products and services from that angle.
No,
So,
definitely. And that
yes.
was one of the interesting things about, the last 8 years I spent at eBay is I did a lot of traveling. I would do 180 nights a year in a hotel, couple
Mhm.
100,000 miles a year in the air,
Right.
and one of my rules was no working on the plane,
Mm. Okay.
because I worked enough the rest of the time, right?
Yes.
And so that was my downtime. It was like that was my time when there was no, like, the laptop wasn't out. Yeah, I might have had the iPad, I might have been reading,
Right.
right? I might have been, jotting notes about just stuff outside of work, just
Right.
stuff, right? Just stuff to, clear my mind.
Right.
And so for me, that was always that kind of quiet time.
Mm.
It's
Mm.
like, there's music going on or whatever, but it was never a working time for me, and it's like,
Yes.
some of those flights are, long flights, I might spend 13, 14 hours a leg on a
Yes.
plane,
Yes.
and so, for me, that there's a lot of downtime in that in
Yes.
those times, uh,
Yes.
so
Yes.
definitely.
I would also like to, reflect a little bit on some of the attributes that you were talking about
Yep,
humans while working in the biggest
yep,
technology, arena for so many years. Two things stood out to me. One was humility, the ability to understand and realize that I may not have all the answers, and I may not be the best, most intelligent person or most smartest person in
yep,
the room, because that is a fact. I mean, no matter how smart you are, your smartness is going to be around some of the things, not all of the
yeah,
things. And the other thing was inclusivity. And I would like to reflect on this, because normally what happens is people just think these are fancy words. Being a nice person, kind person, compassion, humility, all these attributes come to you. But I would like to draw parallels of this seemingly just a human attribute towards actual material success. If you are a person who understands this and knows that I may not be the smartest person, then you are going to be easy to work with. One, you are going to bring perspectives of others also and roll out products from that space. And ultimately, your products are going to hit so many different types of people. So
yeah,
if you're not taking that approach where you take perspectives of everybody else's as well, then your product is going to be just a replica, a mirror of who you are,
yeah,
but not a total complete product which talks to everybody. Number
yeah,
one. Number two, inclusivity. Yes, I mean, inclusivity may seem like a fancy word, like just, okay, they're just saying it because they want to say it.
yeah,
No, when you look at inclusivity from a different angle, ultimately all our products and services today are global scale, right? We
yep,
touch different cultures, we touch different countries, different, societies and whatnot. So if your product building process itself is not a collective of those different cultures and
yep,
societies and mindsets, then how is your product going to be built in a fashion that it appeals to everybody, isn't it? So,
yep,
so it, it has a tangible association with your material success as well. These seemingly just human topics.
yep, definitely.
Yes. So next thing I wanted to do was talk about a little bit about your Amplify book, Dan. What stood out to me when I saw you first talk about that on LinkedIn and places was like, Dan has written a book on AI and it is about human potential. And I was like, that seems like my category. How come Dan is dealing with that? So tell me a little bit about that because
Yeah.
it's very intriguing. And what are you talking about in that book? And why did you choose? Like you could have easily said, okay, I'm going to create a book that talks about all these AI tools and
Yeah.
educate people, but you chose something which is about human potential. So
Yeah.
please enlighten me on that.
Yeah.
You chose that and what it contains.
Definitely. There's a couple of reasons I felt it was time to leave the corporate world. One was it was really to step back from the craziness
Yes.
of the corporate life. It was a purposeful semi-retirement, right? I'm
Mhm,
still
mhm.
there's no way I was ready for full retirement. Right?
Similar as me.
Yeah.
And I loved what you said a few minutes back, which was like it all started becoming about numbers. And that's my realization too, that it's not all about numbers, guys. End of the day, we're dealing with humans. We ourselves are humans.
Yeah.
And it's not all about numbers. In
Yeah.
fact, business building process by the truly greats
Yeah.
is never about numbers. Talk
Exactly.
to the Google founders, talk to Steve
Yeah.
Jobs, who obsessed
Yeah.
over innovation than the actual profit
It's
making
about
process, and you
value.
see that trait through and through and through. So yeah.
About creating value. About
Yes.
creating value, and
Yeah.
that was the challenge for me, when
Mm.
it continued to be about the numbers, when the targets
Yes.
continued to be unrealistic about the numbers you were saving, that
Yes.
AI is gonna bring all this benefit that
Mhm.
wasn't realistic and was all hype. I was like, "Okay, time
Agree.
for me to step out," right? And so I wasn't ready to take, like I said, I wasn't ready to completely stop. I was at a point where I wanted to spend more time with my wife. I've been married my wife and I went to high school together, so I've been married for it'll be 38 years next month.
Sure. Sure.
And so I also have twin 8-year-old granddaughters, and so
Mm.
we decided to move to Missouri, middle of the country, to be
Right.
closer to them. My wife picked them up from school every day. They're over here during the summer. They're actually out there in the living room right now,
Uh-huh.
and so over here, so we get to see a lot more of them.
Right.
And for me, one of the things that I saw was there's a ton of books out there about all the hype. Here's what's gonna do. It's
Yes.
a ton of
Yeah.
books out there about the fear. It's gonna take over all the
Yes.
jobs, right? A ton of books out there about that. There wasn't anything out there
Hmm.
about how do you keep what's really important about your company
Right.
while you do this, right?
Hmm.
And
Yes.
having I deployed my first chatbot in 2006 at Intuit. We
Right.
called it Tina, TurboTax Interactive Agent. Now,
Hmm.
definitely wasn't Gen AI, but it was AI, right? But definitely
Yes.
wasn't Gen AI. So it's
Yes.
like not like AI is new, right? Gen AI is new, but not like AI is new, right?
Yes.
As I thought about it, it's like, okay, how do I take all the things I've learned,
Right.
how do I take all the important components of the things around human judgment,
Hmm.
trust, the things that are important as you deploy, especially, the last year or so at eBay, we have been doing a lot of work with OpenAI directly with right, the leaders in the space. And
Hmm.
I could see a lot of what was being worked on. I knew a lot about what's going on and
Hmm.
see a lot of what should be done. And I
Hmm.
was able to deploy. I had Gen AI products in production. Right? So it wasn't like I was coming from "Hey, here's this guy who's talking about theory." I had Gen AI products in production for a couple of years, right?
Yes.
And so for me, I wanna take that operator lens
Hmm.
of, here's what it looks like to deploy it in the right way.
Hmm.
Here's what it takes to do it in the right way
Hmm.
without losing the things that are important, right?
Hmm. Yes.
Without saying, because for me, it's like one of the things I did, the reason I went to eBay and left Apple
Hmm.
was to completely reinvent service, right?
Hmm.
When I left Apple, one of the challenges, the project that we were working on, reinventing the service desktop component
Yes.
for Apple was somewhat a little bit frustrating because the challenge was, right? It's like I could have all the vision from the product side I wanted, but getting it done from an IT side was a challenge, as you know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
No matter
I.
how much money, right? No matter how much money you can get from Tim and Angela and everybody else at the time,
Yeah.
right? It's a challenge because
Yes.
there's so much demand from that centralized IS&T team. When I was looking at the role at eBay, the benefit I had was owning both product and engineering.
Hmm.
Like, oh, wait a minute. So I get to build the vision
Hmm.
and I get to build the product.
Mm.
Hey, doesn't get much better than that, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so
Right.
so I went over there and had the ability to say, okay, what should we do?
Mhm.
right? Because for me, the benefit of owning both is I think of product as the what and the why.
Mhm.
What should we do and why should we do it? And engineering is how. And
Mhm.
having that healthy tension between the two is important, right?
Mm.
Because if
Mm.
you have an engineering-led organization, you get
Yes.
really cool stuff,
Yes.
may not be what the customer needs.
I agree.
And so you need that healthy tension. And what I was able to do with the teams I had and with great leaders that I worked with was able to build something that was much more efficient,
Mhm.
but also increased customer satisfaction
Hmm.
by over
Yes.
200%, right? And so we used a lot of AI, a lot of technology, but we also thought about it from the ground up how we did it, right? And
Mhm.
so proof point of, and this was time and time again, you look at some of the stuff we did at Apple, some of the stuff I did in Intuit, was
Mhm.
time and time again, how do you balance both efficiency and effectiveness with
Mhm.
technology? Not
Yeah.
about getting rid of people, not about, it's like you can do both. And so
Yes.
what I wanted to do with the book was, how do I take those lessons of 20 plus years of doing
Right.
this, and
Right.
how do I have a framework and a structure of how I approach it in a structured way, right?
Right.
Which is what I call the Amplify method of how would I deploy this in a way that allows you to keep the things that are truly needed, right? AI is great at analytical thinking.
Right.
It's way better than any person's ever going to be, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's not good at empathy,
Yes.
judgment,
Yes.
trust. Now, may it get there someday? Who knows, right? It's
Yes.
not good at it today.
Yes.
And so I wanted to write the book around that because no one's writing a book on that. No,
Mm.
and having spent 20 plus years doing it,
Right.
I'm coming from a place of learn from my mistakes because I sure as hell made mistakes along the way.
Of
Right.
course.
So learn from my mistakes,
Mhm.
take it from someone who's been in the trenches and doing this. I'm not the guru on the mountain who says, I've done this to go do it exactly the way I did it.
Yes.
Learn from my mistakes, take
Yes.
it. Right. The
Yes.
other thing for me was the reason it's called the operator's playbook
Uh-huh.
is it's actually a playbook.
Okay.
The goal for writing the book, because a lot of times you see people write books, and this is one of the things that, as I read books as I was in the business world was you read the book and then you go, great, what do I do now?
Mhm.
Right? The way I wrote the book and the reason it's called a playbook is it's a playbook.
Mhm.
All the templates are in there.
Yes.
All the processes are in there.
Yes.
The whole appendix, which is probably about 20% of the book,
Mhm.
is the 90-day here, go do it. So I
Mhm.
didn't write a book that says, okay, here's a book. Now go hire Dan to come implement this at your company.
Mhm.
No. Now, if you want to hire me to come help you or come talk to your team about it, sure, have at it, right?
Of course.
But the purpose of the book wasn't hey, let's go have Dan come deploy this to our company. The purpose of the
Right.
book was, no, here's the method. Here's the
Yes.
templates. Here's how you
Yes.
approach it. Here's how you should think about it at your company. But
Yes.
this isn't right. Here's from the guy on high how to do this. Here's
Right.
some ways you should think about it. And here's the methodology behind how you should think about it.
Right.
And so my approach was very different from how most business books are written. It was really from a guy in the trenches who's done this, who's led teams, who's done this at some pretty iconic companies and
Mhm.
had great results doing it. Here you go.
Yes, yes, yes. As you were talking about this, I was also reflecting that in your book, I think there's a lot of mention of human judgment.
Yes.
And, that should not be automated and, that should be kept within the organization. So you want to talk a little bit about that? If you can give me some examples of,
Totally.
what are those key points where you feel that human judgment is needed here and don't outsource this to
Yeah.
AI
Yeah.
because it will fail. So
Yeah.
yeah, talk
Yeah,
a
there's things AI should do and things AI shouldn't do. Things
right.
AI is capable of doing, but it shouldn't do, right?
Awesome.
When I talk about decision authority, I use 3 classes of decisions,
Okay.
I always think about it. The first class is there's things that are very clearly very easy that AI should do, right?
Mhm.
It's a clear decision, no real penalty for getting it a little wrong, right?
Right.
FedEx package routing, right? Yeah. Driving directions, right? Those are pretty easy. AI can make that decision, right? Yeah, those
Right.
are pretty easy standard decisions.
Yes.
You
Yes.
get a next set of decisions where AI can recommend, but a human should probably look at it. Let's say you have a return policy that's 30 days.
Mhm.
Someone requests a return 35 days out of the window, right?
Right. Right.
AI can recommend it, but a
Mhm.
human should look at it. Is this a valuable enough customer where I should make an exception?
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
so it needs that human judgment because
Yeah.
if AI looks at it, it's going to go, nope,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And even some of those that when you think about it, And I use this example in the book. When you think about like AI could do some things, but you may want a human involved.
Mhm.
Let's say canceling an account, closing an account, canceling an account, right?
Right.
That's a pretty simple process. But let's say it's a widow who just lost her husband,
Mhm. Yes,
right? In
situational.
that situation, right? AI could do it, but from an empathy perspective, you probably want to give that person that confidence,
Yes,
that
yes,
warmth, right?
yes, yes,
That's a situation where you probably want a human involved.
yes,
Right?
yes.
And so that's a AI recommend, get it all ready, and then just have a human involved in the moment, right? And
Right.
so those are the kind of things where just to keep your company and keep that trust and empathy and in
Yes,
that place. So that's a class 2. What
yes.
happens with those recommend and human decides, a lot of times at scale, right? That's when those decisions start slipping back into class 1, right?
Mhm.
Think about like, iPhone order night, right?
Yes,
When that fraud model starts triggering, right? And it's triggering pretty fast. Like,
yes,
okay, do we move the lever a little bit? Okay, move the lever a little bit, and then
yes.
do we ever remember to move it back, right? And so that gets to be the challenge of those class 2 decisions
Mm.
is if you make decisions to, like, kinda loosen it, remembering to put it back, right?
Yes,
And
yes,
so understanding where you should be in the AI recommends, human
yes,
decides.
yes.
Class 3 becomes those things where AI informs, but human decides.
Mm.
Regulatory, right? Claims,
Mhm.
right? Limits, those kind of things
Right.
where there's a severe penalty. I'm going to close an account. I'm going to decide on a claim, those kind of things where I have to explain to the regulator why the AI made that decision, right?
Yes, yes.
Those are things where a human has to be there
Mm.
making that final decision, right? And
Yes.
so when you think about those, and because a lot of times, even when you look at eBay,
Mhm.
the amount of stuff that goes through, like the fraud engine, those kind of things, there's
Mhm.
things that we've decided 9 out of 10 things, right? AI
Yes.
can figure that out. That 10th one, no, hey,
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
a person look at that, right?
Yes.
And so there, when you think about that, that's kind of the model I use is how important is the decision that's about to be made, right?
Mhm.
And
Yes.
how confident are you that AI is going to get it right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's really about impact and confidence.
Yes. I totally agree with your three class approach.
Yeah.
Even to my brain, this is how it should be. Yes, break it down into things where absolutely silly things like, where everything is already documented.
Yeah.
Yeah, let even a human is going to do the same thing. So let AI take care of
Yep.
that. Category two is wherever there is, you know, ambiguity or there can be the empathetical layer, the, human layer, those decisions. Yeah, let AI come to that point, and when it sees it delegates saying let a human get involved. And the third would be regulatory stuff and places where it's completely human. I'm not an AI expert, but I'm building something, just like you. Even I've taken a semi retirement where
Yeah.
I've quit Apple, but I'm not going to sit back at home for the rest of my years and
Yeah.
watch Netflix. I'm a busy person. I love to build things,
Yeah.
help people. So I'm building something as myself as well, and I have some engineers working on my team. And in that process, I of course did a lot of reading on AI and what are the challenges, what are the problem areas and stuff. And what I have seen is that there's one big gap, and that is and that gap can be very big for bigger corporations like Apple's and eBay's of the
Yep.
world, is the individual departments are going to implement their solutions. But organizationally, somebody sitting above different departments, like the CEO of the company,
Yep.
how do they know what the heck is happening in this department, that
Yes.
department?
Yeah.
How do, both from the budget's perspective plus the overall what's happening in those, places, how do you bridge those gaps, meaning accountability at the highest level with AI taking over? So those are some big gaps, right? Any
Yeah.
thoughts on that as to
Yeah, and
what's
that's
happening in
but
the
that's
industry?
why you need the governance standards, and that's why, when you think about, the accountability,
Mhm,
and for me, having the right accountability mechanisms in place and having the right documentation, for me, if you can't tell me who's responsible for every decision the AI is making, who's
mhm.
monitoring it, right, and what metrics you have in place, you don't
Right.
have governance, right?
Yes.
Uh and I always talk about it, and you'll see this appear in a lot of my, LinkedIn posts. If you
Mhm,
can't explain to me in 60 seconds who's responsible for the decision,
mhm,
you don't have governance, right?
mm.
Uh, And so
Yes.
I there's quite a few of what's in the templates of my book that are very very much around in order to have the right level of governance.
Right.
There's two things. One is for every decision, do you have an owner? For every
Mhm.
decision AI makes, do you have an
Yeah.
owner? For
Yes.
for each department. So every
Mhm.
department, if
Yes.
AI is making a decision, that individual decision has to have an owner.
Yes.
And if you have a set of decisions, so let's say you have a process. So, like, let's say manufacturing has this part of it, then it goes over here, then it goes over there, and it goes over here.
Right.
Somebody has to own the sequence as well. You have to have
Mhm.
sequence ownership. Because otherwise, if it goes wrong somewhere along there,
Yes.
everyone's going to go, no, my part was right.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Someone has to
Right.
own the sequence. And
Yes.
so you need to have those kind of things in place.
Right.
The other part that's important, and that's why the model of Amplify kinda takes it across the whole thing, right? So
Okay.
if you break down the Amplify model, right,
Mhm.
it takes it across the whole thing,
Right.
is a thing that I call key human indicators. So, right, everybody has KPIs, right?
Right.
Like, you know, but the key human indicators allow you to understand is your AI governance working well, right? Are people even doing overrides of the system,
Mhm.
right? Because you need
Okay.
to have, right? Someone needs to have, I call it the red button protocol. You need
Right.
to have people with their permission to say, wait, this doesn't look right. I'm pausing it.
Mhm.
And they have to have the one, the ability to pause it, but two,
Mhm.
they have to have the ability to not get in trouble if they paused it. If they
Right.
get in trouble for pausing it, they're never going to pause it, right?
Right.
And so you need to have those certain kind of things in place and the right level of governance across, right,
Okay.
all of those kinds of pieces.
Right.
And there's quite a few of those things in the Amplify model that talk about how do you handle it at the department level as well
Mhm.
as how you think about it at the corporate level.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Because, yeah, otherwise it gets out of control.
Yes.
And
Yes.
everyone was treating it kind of like, "Hey, let's give everybody a ChatGPT, right, license." And now it's becoming more of a board level view of the boards are seeing it as their responsibility for governance
Mhm.
versus
Makes sense.
leaving it at, somebody else's responsibility.
Yes. Okay. The question I wanted to address is like the elephant in the room kind of a situation. You know, as you rightfully said a few, minutes earlier, was that I think the world is so divided right now with the aspects of AI. There are some people who are like hyping it up. They're so excited with the possibilities that sometimes that almost seems like a hype, and rightfully so as well, because they're taking some decisions which are not ideal, for our overall ecosystem, even our organizations and stuff. And the other is the fear of AI, the anxiety around it and stuff. And some of that fear seems real. I mean, definitely, even when I am myself now playing with AI, my mind is blown away with, things that used to take months now is done in weeks. Things that took weeks is now done in days, hours. In fact, I had to shift my positioning when, after quitting Apple, I hired some engineers to work on my team. I took the role of a mentor, then just a builder myself. And I said, okay, I'm not going to build, I'm going to mentor these people, because if they continue to operate like traditional developers, then the product is not going to be great. These people also need to evolve now and not just be developers, pure developers, but almost like product managers of their individual areas, where they have to be thinking around the corner and going deeper, asking tough questions, brainstorming with ChatGPT, Claude, and then coming up with and brainstorming with me and rest of my team members further. So those layers are needed, and that's a huge uptick for developers. Developers will have to evolve from that angle. But unfortunately, it is not going to happen. Some of the developers who are so wired in the old ways of doing things and cannot see this shift, they are going to be on the wrong side. And how do you deal with this situation? And are layoffs the only solutions, or something in the middle? And then even the organizational responsibility from the corporations to, take care of these kind of people. I mean, there is so much shift that is going to happen here,
Yeah.
and I don't think anybody can give us an exact answer, like, one way or the other. But I'm curious to hear what are your thoughts on this whole equation of continuously evolving yourself, and if you don't, you're going to lose your job, and if you do, then how does your mental makeup keeps up with that? So many layers to unfold here, so let's
Yeah.
Let's see by your thoughts on this, Dan.
Yeah, quite a few layers to unpack there. This quote's been out there for a couple years now. AI is not going to take your job. Someone using AI to do your job better is going to take your job, right?
Yeah. Right.
And that's definitely what I've been seeing. Now AI is going to replace some jobs, right? There are some jobs that just AI does better, right?
Right.
You think right, data analytics, right? The
Yes.
people you look at
That
companies.
reminds me of this word you used to use, that cognitive burden. I mean,
Yes,
we are in a world right now where, all of that cognitive burden is being taken away. And I think that is how people should be looking at it, that
exactly.
anything which was just bothering your,
Totally.
intellect, dump it there.
Yep,
But it is a human being is much more than the intellect. And
exactly.
you have to grow beyond your intellect now to tap into those deeper layers so that you can succeed in the world of AI.
I was chatting with somebody the other day, and it's like I've created a ton of slides in my life, right? Probably hundreds of thousands at this point.
Yes.
And because I've been creating slides since they actually used to be the little 35 millimeter slides, Harvard
Right.
graphics for DOS back in the early 90s.
Right.
And nobody needs to create slides anymore
Mhm.
because the tools will do it for you, right? And so the fact that I can create slides in PowerPoint doesn't really matter anymore. I don't need to, right?
Yes.
And so I always think about it as when I talk about AI, and AI is your thought partner, not your thought replacement.
Mhm.
And that's the way you need to treat it, right? If you're
Yeah.
treating AI, if you're treating ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or Grok or whatever your favorite flavor is,
Right.
I use all of them depending on what I'm using it for.
Me too.
If you treat it like Google, you're
Mhm.
using it wrong, right? I treat it as my thought partner, right?
Yes. Same
Um,
here. Same here.
for example, the way I use Claude is a great example. Claude has my book, every article I've written, every LinkedIn post I've done, everything I have. So whenever I have a conversation, right,
Mhm.
it's done as a thought partner with Claude, right?
Right.
Every time I write a LinkedIn post, it
Yes.
works with Claude, right?
Yes.
And I run it up against Claude.
Yeah.
It has my tone guide, so it knows exactly how I talk, how I write, everything else, and so
Yes.
everything's done with Claude, right?
Right.
And whenever I do visuals, right? ChatGPT, their image model right now, theirs is the best. This
Yes.
week, who knows, right? By the time we get up this, somebody else, Nano Banana could take back over, who knows, right? And so it has my visual guide for CX Amplify. It knows the colors and everything else. So everything I design is
Mhm.
based on that, right?
Mhm.
Uh,
Nice.
and so when you think about that, if you're ignoring AI,
Mhm.
yeah, you're probably going to be impacted, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
and I think what corporations' responsibility is to communicate that. Is to communicate that, right, you have to use AI, right? One
Mhm.
of the things that when it was very interesting when ChatGPT first came out and I was at eBay, when it first launched, they were like, "You can't use ChatGPT," right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Nobody, right? Nobody can use it, right? And it was very interesting because like, okay, everybody's like, "This is gonna be something," and like, can't use it. And so I figured out, it's like, "Okay, I've gotta learn this thing," right? I was living on the West Coast. My granddaughters were living here. And so I actually started using it to write bedtime stories for them.
Mhm.
And so I was writing bedtime stories for them, and I was using ChatGPT to write the bedtime story, and then I massage it a little bit because it wasn't great at it then. If you think about what the first version of ChatGPT, right?
Of course.
Imagine that versus now. And then I was using Midjourney to do some graphics.
Uh-huh.
It also wasn't great. Those went
Okay.
into Photoshop and manipulate. But
Right.
it became good enough that I actually put it together, and I
Mhm.
put together a children's book and published it on Amazon KDP. And so
Mhm.
they actually have a bedtime storybook written by their grandfather, right?
Okay.
I thought
Interesting.
was pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
That was actually my first book they published, right?
Uh,
It was a little children's book, but I learned so much about prompt engineering
mhm.
because I
Yeah.
couldn't use it at work, but I
Yes.
knew it was important, right?
Yes.
And so for me, I've never
Right.
been afraid of learning it. And
Yes.
so I was already ahead once we started to have to use it at work.
Yes.
Right? And
Yes.
then it became something we had to learn to use it. And
Mhm.
so I've always thought about it as, hey, this is just another tool in the toolbox,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And so for me, it's the how can I use it to help me get stuff done? And that's what
Yes.
you have to think about. It's like it's one of those things that can help me get once again,
Yes.
cognitive burden. How can I take the things that are
True.
really analytically hard, the hard stuff, the stuff I hate doing all the time, right? Let's just let it do, right? I
Yes.
got a bunch of data, let it process the data, let it spit it
Yeah.
out, tell me,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Uh, oh, I got to read this PDF. Summarize this PDF for me, right?
Right.
And so it's better at those things than I'm going to be.
Yes. Yes.
And
I mean,
and so when you talk about engineering, especially engineers in today's world, the
mhm.
the the gap between product and engineering is closing, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, UI, UX designers,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. Right? And we even started doing some of this before I left eBay at the end of last year was, I need the UI, UX designer to build the design system
Mhm.
that I can have fed into the AI so that my product managers can do the
I was
right,
saying use that as a reference
use
point.
that as the
That
reference, right?
yeah.
And get the prototype so that
Yeah.
by the time it gets to the engineer, it's
Yeah.
30 to 40% done,
Absolutely.
right?
And
So
if you're not an eBay or an Apple, use keywords like, smart keywords saying, design this, and I want you to use the industry best
oh,
practices
yeah,
for a UX like this. Look at
yep,
that company's,
exactly.
UX.
Well,
Look
and
at
if
that.
yeah, totally.
Provide some references, and it just does it.
Well, you
Yes.
you look at, the latest version of, Google has a thing called Stitch, which is their like, Claude has
Yes.
Claude Design, Google has Stitch,
Yes.
and what Google did with the latest version of Stitch is they open source what they call design.md files. There's a repository out there of design MD files from
Mhm.
every big brand. So there's the Apple Design MD, there's the Google Design MD. You can go
Right.
snag that and base
Yeah.
your stuff based on all of that stuff, right?
Yes.
And so the ability to design stuff that looks really good,
Yes.
the barrier to entry is like this,
Yes.
right? And so for any developer, and this is gonna become the hard part, right? Is that for a developer, it's you have to learn it. You
Yes.
have to know it,
You have to.
right?
You have
Because
to.
like how to connect to an AWS data store, I don't need to know that anymore,
Correct.
right? That it's gonna just do that. So
Literally, it just goes and figures out the APIs. Just all it says is, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. For this one, give me the key for this one, and that's
exactly.
it. No matter which API, which
Yeah.
which application you're talking about,
Yeah.
all you have to do is
Just tell
you should be able to understand the system, the thought process behind it. Like, okay, this is
but
what I want in the platform.
but that becomes the challenge, right? And
Yes.
I had actually had this conversation with Gartner last year, was
Uh-huh.
here's the gap I see happening.
You're right.
All these
Of-
kids now who are learning how to be a developer, but they
Right.
have all these vibe coding tools and all these tools that
Yeah.
help you.
Yes.
And then you have all these senior engineers who are gonna be leaving the world, the market, right?
Right.
How do you get your new senior engineers when
Right.
they've never learned all of this?
Yes.
And so, the things that we started putting in place was how do you have all these AI tools tutor the junior engineers in those fundamentals,
Right.
right?
Right.
Data structures, things like that, the things they still need to know, right?
Yes.
So they can ask the right questions and make sure you're doing a robust design. Because
Yes.
the challenge with and we're seeing this with one of the companies that I help, we're seeing a lot more lines of code, but
Mhm.
not always good lines of code,
Right.
right?
Right.
And they don't know they're not good lines of code
Mhm.
because they have nothing to base it on, right? And so those junior developers still need to understand the fundamentals,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Not just because they have a Claude Code or a Lovable or
Yeah.
Cursor or whatever, right?
Yes.
They still need to understand the fundamentals, and
Yeah.
so that's the important thing that they still need to understand. And so when you
Yes.
talk about the jobs of the future,
Right.
being able to work with AI in the right way, not
Yes.
just for developer at any job, right?
Yes.
When I'm a finance person, being able to work with an Excel spreadsheet, but being
Yeah.
able to talk to AI to do the things I used to do manually, right?
Yes.
I should never I don't to do a V lookup in Excel, I don't have to learn how to do that anymore,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely. I have a very unique perspective on this whole layoff versus no layoff and where we land up. See if this makes sense to you. I think at the organizational level, it will all boil down to how innovative organization you are versus not innovative. Meaning a company which is, let's say, stagnant in growth, definitely I is going to, make things faster for them, and they will reach a point where they'll be like, okay, now whatever my engineers did this in, so many days, now it is able to do in weeks and stuff. So now I have an excess of engineers, or I have an excess of customer service, or whatever, because they are not growing, they are not innovating at a faster pace. However, companies who have innovation in their DNA, I think will be like, okay, I mean, last year we shipped
Yep.
this much, this year we're going to ship 5x.
Yeah.
We're going to still, need the number of people
Yeah.
that we have. You're not going to let go of anybody, but
There's gonna
now
be
we're
more.
going to be, shipping more, we're
Yeah.
going to be doing more. So
I think it depends on the pressure from the board, right?
uh-huh, of
Because you're
course.
still seeing even some of the innovative companies, you're still seeing them lay people off.
I know. I know.
Yeah. But I think some of them are regretting it. Some of them are regretting it and hiring people back, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's the thing. I think one of the interesting stories, the IKEA story is a very interesting story. I don't know if you've seen
Okay.
it, but IKEA figured out their customer service could be done by AI,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so they had 8,500, I think the number's 8,500, somewhere around that,
Right.
8,500 customer service reps. And they're
Uh-huh.
like, we don't need them to do customer service anymore.
Hmm. Yes.
We have 8,500 people who
Mhm.
understand IKEA.
Uh-huh.
They understand IKEA products.
Right.
You know what? Let's have them be IKEA design specialists. They train them as IKEA design specialists to help people pick out the right IKEA stuff. Extra
Interesting.
$1.4 billion in revenue.
Wow.
They didn't let
Wow.
anybody go.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
said, these people know IKEA.
Yes.
We
Yes.
can create an entirely new, I wouldn't call IKEA innovative,
Yeah.
right?
But they
But
change, right? I mean,
but
you have
but they
to
figured out it's like, hey, if we can let these people go,
correct. Because
or
for businesses, I think, tools is one thing, but business understanding of what you are as a company, as a brand,
yep,
that is not learned overnight.
yep,
That, even to become a part of that culture, to
yes,
see things in your business
yep,
that a new person cannot see,
yep,
that comes with time, that comes with experience. And if you're going to just lay off all those bunch of people with so much insight about your business
mhm,
and replace them with AI, dude, you're definitely going to fail, because that the soul was with those people. The best
yep,
strategy is what I describe as
yeah,
IKEA strategy, saying, yeah, teach those people some basic prompt engineering stuff,
yeah,
and then they can do wonders for your business,
yep,
rather than just letting go of them.
yeah,
So yeah, I think that kind of a mindset shift will have to happen.
yeah,
The other thing that I feel is, this is going to start offsetting some of the layoffs, which I think we are already seeing, and probably which will
yep,
go bigger, is the fact that on one hand AI is of course automating, and everything is 5x 10x, the whole
yep,
ecosystem is shifting, but at the same time it is empowering smaller players to go and build big stuff and
yes,
take on the bigger guys,
yes.
building products and solutions that are at par with some of the biggest giants out there. I mean, I have so many examples that I just love to give
Oh,
to my
yeah,
friends. I'm
totally.
like, okay, what stops, somebody sitting in a small town to build a clone of this, but with a more bigger heart,
Yep,
So what I
yep.
mean by that is,
Oh, yeah,
in the past, products were all about like throw a ton of engineers, get a ton of funding, and then we can do wonders. You know, dude, try now competing with the smaller guys who are okay to take only 5% commission rather than 15, 20,
yeah,
30% commission that you did.
yeah,
And they are going to be experts in a certain area. They can go regional and say, okay, I'm going to have a regional version. I'm
yep,
deliberately not taking any names of products.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, literally anything and everything which was just as a software before
Oh, totally.
can be replicated, and say, okay, I'm going to just go after this small niche,
Yeah,
within that bigger niche, or just this city, or just this state. Nobody, that barrier is gone. So
oh, yeah,
essentially,
totally.
point I'm making is, I think this is going to lead to a lot of entrepreneurships.
Oh, yeah,
Or more entrepreneurs, I think, are going to explode on the work scene.
oh, most definitely, yeah.
So, do you agree with that shift that I think I'm seeing on the table?
Yeah, most definitely. I was at a startup event Friday night, and
Uh-huh.
the number of just the thing you can build with 3 or 4 people
Yeah.
that you could never do
Yes.
5 years ago, right?
Yes.
The thing you can build with 3 or 4 people is just crazy.
Yes, 100%. 100%. And I think, I've reflected a lot about the industrial revolution, the internet age, and the AI age. I think, humans are resilient beings. When one door closes, our innovation,
Yep,
opens some other doors. So
yep,
I think definitely in the next decade or so is going to be a lot of turmoil for people to learn something new and rewire their brains and stuff. But eventually, at the end of the day, I think we are still going to be great, and we're still going to, exist and thrive as a human race. Just curious, what are your thoughts on this? Would you agree, disagree, or some other spin on
oh, yeah.
this?
Oh, most definitely. It's like every technological change is just brought on. Yes, some jobs get replaced, but new jobs get created, right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
whether it was factories, whether it's the internet,
Yes.
whatever it was, right?
Yes.
So technology change drives innovation.
Yes.
It drives new creation.
Yes.
And it's just now this one is probably one of the biggest ones, right? Because just the size of the displacement has been bigger than anything else, right?
Yes. I would like to conclude this segment with the summary of this age would be that finally, I think we have a technology which is going to push humans to be more human.
Yeah.
Okay. What I mean by that is humanity, I think we had in the past association with I learned this skill and I'm expert at that. So it's no more just skills. It is the deeper layers where we are saying, okay, what can I bring to the world in this area, in that area, and then build products and services around those, and then be really good at those. And that will happen in different,
Yep.
niches and stuff. And I think it's it's going to push us to know that as a human being, we are not collection of skills and knowledge. We are a something much deeper, the intuitive the intuition, the compassion, the drive to be of service to others, purpose, and having a North Star defined. These questions are, I think, going to be more and more relevant for people to answer to survive and thrive this age.
Yeah, most definitely. I agree.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. This time I'm doing something different. I'm going to give you five rapid fire
Okay.
questions because I know we are, getting to the end of this discussion. I'm going to just read out a line and then
Okay.
I'm going to say at the end a blank and then you can
All right.
fill that blank the way you want. Okay.
We'll give it a shot.
Yes. Let's have fun with this. Okay. All right. AI should make humans blank.
More productive.
Okay. The biggest mistake leaders are making today is blank.
Giving away their decision rights.
Very good. Yes. 20 years from now, people will laugh that we believed blank.
AI was going to take away all the jobs.
Wonderful. Love that one. That is beautiful. Yes. Because we're going to break this myth. This is not going to be true. 100%. Humanity is going to survive and thrive and continue to be amazing. So, yes. One habit every leader should develop before adopting AI is blank.
Decide who's going to own the decision.
Yes. Also become clear, like what are you building? Why are you building? Who's, those questions are very important, I think. So yes, pretty similar. The final one. One book besides your own everyone should read is blank.
Atomic Habits.
I see. Atomic Habits. Okay. Even I'll make it a point to read that one.
Yep.
So amazing. So Dan, I have one final question for you, and based on all your experience as a US Marine and then in the biggest companies of the Silicon Valley, how would you guide the next generation of, engineers and other people coming up? There's a lot of, confusion, anxiety, what to study, what not to study. One of the most trickiest questions today for parents, what graduation your kid doing. So would you like to address and provide some insight to these kind of people, some hope, some guidance?
Yeah, for me, it's the fundamentals, right? It's the understanding. As my own son, my son is in college right now. He's studying AI engineering, right?
Correct.
And so it's like, no, don't study engineering, right? He's
Yes.
studying AI engineering, but it's also the practical application of it. And so don't just study it to study it, do
Mhm.
it, right?
Yes. Yes.
Do it and get out there and do it.
Yes.
But it's also do something you enjoy.
Yes.
Part of it. Do
So
something you enjoy, right? If you don't wanna wake up every Monday morning and go, "Oh, I hate doing this," right? So do something you enjoy. Uh,
yes.
and so for me, AI, like I said, don't be afraid of it. It's gonna impact everyone's life.
Yes.
Hard what you study, find something you enjoy, study
Yes.
it. Don't be afraid of even like I said, even my own son is studying AI engineering, so don't be afraid that all the engineering jobs are going away. They're not.
Yeah, they're not.
They're not. They're still out there.
Yes.
It is, but, for me, find the right path that makes you happy,
Yes.
that makes you fulfilled,
Yes.
that because that's the important part. Because life is short and you only get to do it once, so
Yes. Yes. And in fact, to just, extend on your message, the central theme is do what you love, have fun with it, feel fulfilled on the inside. I think ironically, it is also a success advice. Why? Because the process of continuously learning, constantly something new is going to come up. It's already happening. You will not be able to go too far if you're not enjoying
totally.
whatever you're doing.
Yep.
See what I'm saying? I mean,
Yep.
and if it's going to be something that you are doing out of passion because you love it and stuff, you will automatically learn whatever comes up
Yep.
and continue to make progress.
Yep.
So
You'll enjoy doing it, and you'll enjoy learning about it.
Yes, yes. So that's it, Dan. I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
As did I.
I'm pretty sure we could have gone on much more. Maybe we'll create some kind of series down the line
Yep.
talking about AI and helping people better. But for a podcast, I think this was the perfect length. Thank you so much for coming up here and sharing your thoughts. Absolutely loved it.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Take
Take
care and
care.
have a great day. Bye.